Yeah.
I don't think we've been in the same.
No. This is a good combination. This is the first time Hannah and Jeff have been in the same hangout. And so people watching it right now, this is going to be retitled. This will become how Hannah gets on with SPs, sort of experience of them. Do you like them, or are they blighters? Or maybe some of them you do like.
You want to have a fight here, so.
No. Well,
How could you not like SPs? We're the greatest.
Yeah, well, let's start with the greatest first. So, what do you think of ESFP? I think, did you say you've got an ESFP son, Hannah?
Well, I believe he's ESFP. Well, he's only 8 now, but I have thought he's ESFP for many years now. He's definitely SE lead, and he's so affectionate and sensitive that I lean towards ESFP.
Jeff's probably liking that.
Yeah, I don't know if they are. Well, maybe I don't know if ESFPs are affectionate or sensitive, but in comparison to ESTPs, I assume they
are. Yes.
Yeah, actually, 8 was the same age my son was when I started to try to figure out his type.
Okay.
And I kind of did the same thing. I narrowed it down, like he was either ESFP or ESTP. And over the course of the next year or so, I figured out that he's ESTP. So.
What made you think that he was more ESTP?
Some of it was just like asking him questions about like what was important to him and like how he kind of operated and stuff, because I really hadn't done that before. And then because that was the time where I had gotten into like typing stuff in general, so I was just learning about it, and so it was kind of curiosity. I was like, I'm gonna ask him. I didn't give him like at that time I didn't give him like the MBTI or anything, but I asked him some questions that were sort of related about like what motivates him and things like that. And the rest was just observation, just seeing the way he did things. And actually the affectionate thing, it's funny you say that, because he's got an ESFP father and an ENFP mother, and we're both very affectionate people, and I think he kind of we brought him up that way, and he kind of got that from us, I think. I'm not sure how much he would have been that way naturally if we hadn't kind of influenced him. I don't know, maybe he would have, but he's less so now. Of course, he's a teenager now, so. But I still get hugs from him, from time to time. So take what you can get. But
that's a big thing from an ESTP.
Yeah. So now he thinks it's hilarious that at one point I thought he could be an F type. But the thing is, at 8 years old,
really?
it's hard to tell. But it kind of developed over the next year or so. I kind of just watched him and figured out that, when it came to actually making decisions or judgments or whatever, that he tended to actually be more logical than me.
Okay, yeah. Well, that sounds like ESTP. Because I think my son he loves to take tests, and I have he always wants to take those, and he basically always tests as ESFP. Also, when I take these like more well, they are not that strict, but those tests that you can take for your kid, I always get ESFP for him, and I think he tests quite high on F. So sometimes he has tested as ENFP, so it's even that. But I think he's so SE so that I believe he's.
When I actually gave him the MBTI later on, and he was probably like 13, 14 maybe, he came out ESTP, and the only one that was really that close was the introvert-extrovert part, which doesn't surprise me because a lot of people kind of score close to the middle on that. And then he wasn't, the sensing preference was also less, it was a little more than that, but it wasn't like huge difference. So the only other type I really sort of seriously considered for him was ENTP. But, just from what he says and him looking at descriptions or profiles or whatever, he relates a lot more to the ESTP because just the way he operates is just it's more for the sensation of things than it is for any particular like knowledge or anything like that. So.
Yeah, he is very sharp-minded.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Which a lot of people confuse for intuition, but it isn't.
Yeah. It isn't. Oh, yeah, it isn't. Definitely isn't. Many ESTPs are. Even EJ R&D, even though he's a bit arrogant to my taste, but he's quite smart.
Oh yeah. And my son has a whole lot in common with him in terms of. There are times where I've watched his videos and it's like, I mean, even some of his mannerisms are similar to Morgan. I mean, they're just, it's eerie sometimes.
So yeah, Jeff, when you were saying that you were asking him, what were the sort of things that were more indicative of like ESTP than ESFP when you like asked him questions when he was younger?
As an ESFP, I didn't keep like a log or anything, or any diagrams like you do. But I just remember basically like what I said, that he did seem to, he indicated, however it is he did that, I don't remember in terms of what he said, that, making decisions based on your head or your logic or things like that was more important to him. And he actually called me, when he was like 10 years old or so, he called me emotionally immature.
Yeah.
So yeah, he actually, I mean, he is smarter than me, but I mean, he also just sort of, he just focuses more on, whether something makes sense than he does about how it makes him feel. In fact, he's actually somewhat awkward with dealing with his feelings, but of course, also he's a teenager now, he's 16, so there's a whole that hormonal factors that go into that too, so. Yeah, but I mean, that's all I really remember is just, just kind of from his indications, he just had more value for that, so. And he's been more aggressive than me, he kind of comes off as more abrasive. People tend to view him as being kind of hostile or sometimes even violent. And he was, when he was a younger kid, he got in trouble for, attacking teachers, counselors, other kids, things like that, Thankfully, he calmed down a little bit in that area, but he's still just as, like, verbally aggressive sometimes. So.
Yeah.
And I'm less that way. When I act that way, it's because somebody provokes me.
Yeah.
Whereas he can kind of do it out of nowhere, like he can be the initiator of that.
Right. So, in general, Hannah, do you think you get on better with the SFPs than the STPs?
I would say SFPs. I think my mother is very likely ISFP, and we get along really well. And I also think I have some musician friends. My husband is a musician, so I have we have some friends that are musicians, and I think there are quite a lot of SFPs. Well, all kinds of SPs actually, but I think they're okay. It's a bit easier for me to handle an emotional SP than this STP. But I think I have, like I have told in other hangouts that I think my first boyfriend was he was ESTP or ESFP, I don't know which one. I would think that ESFP because he was quite emotional also, but he was usually not that emotional. So I think for other people he looked like ESTP. I don't know. We know what I think of some ESTPs. So.
Yes, and Jeff has similar opinions on Donald Trump as well.
Oh, cool. But Jeff, do you believe that Donald Trump is ESTP?
Yeah. I mean, seems like it to me.
Because E.J. R&D said in one of his videos, E.J. R&D was convinced that Donald Trump is ISTJ.
Yeah, I don't trust Jay's celebrity typings. And he's not any worse than, I mean, there's lots of people that are bad at that, and he's just one of them. I think he has a lot of insights in a lot of things, but I think he gets things mixed up when it comes to typing other people.
Yeah, especially when he either wants them to be the same type as him or doesn't want them to be the same type as him.
Part of it is in his videos, is like sometimes it's hard to tell, you know, how much he's being tongue-in-cheek and how much he's being serious. So there are some that are more obvious than others that he's joking around, like the one where he said about how every type sucks, but ESTPs.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I think and that was one of the ones he said Trump was an ESTJ.
Yeah,
so
it was the one.
He was trying to, you know, he was saying all kinds of stuff where it was just kind of like he made it up as he went along and picked a type to attribute everything to. So yeah, but the thing is, if Trump really was an ESTJ, he would be much more. I think it would be obvious he would have a much more consistent message.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like he makes it up as he goes along. You know, whatever kind of feels like the next thing to make a big deal about, that's what he does. And what I've noticed, and I haven't watched a whole lot of them, but is when he does like campaign stops, like rallies, where he takes questions from the audience, he pretty much just agrees with whatever they say.
Yep.
It's like he listens to what they say, and he basically says, yeah, we're going to do something about that. We're gonna look into that. You know?
If you tell us the story about what somebody said about what was it? Someone asked him a question about Islam, and then do you remember that? I think, did you tell us that in public? And then one guy said something pretty hardcore, and then something like, "Oh, we need to eject them from the country or something," and then you said that Trump said something like, "We'll look into that."
Yeah, he did. It was just like somebody was like, "We need to get rid of all the Muslims," and he was like, "Well, we're going to look into that."
Oh God.
But yeah, like in the past, Donald Trump has been very pro-Democrat because he was like buttering up Democrats that are in his state and like giving money to them as well to like get favors. So is that a thing with promoters, Jeff? The artisan promoter, they'll just generally adapt to the situation and say whatever needs to be said for their own advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, he's running for president now. The way he looks at it, whatever he said in the past, that's not important because now he's doing this. This is what he wants to do, and so listen to me now. I'm the one who has the experience doing whatever, so I'm going to save the country or whatever. And don't hold anything I said in the past against me because that's ancient history. And that's another thing where it's different than ESTJs because it's like they have a much more value for history in the past, and they want to be consistent throughout time, you know, and they can learn things, but they want to be like, you know, here's how I am today, tomorrow, yesterday I was the same, you know. Want to be consistent and steady. SJs all want to do that, and SPs care less about that. We can get bored with being too much the same day in, day out, want to change and be different. So, and he's got those things, like the things that he'll cling to stubbornly, you know, like he's rich, he could do something about that hair, but he doesn't because it's like his way of just being like, you know.
And it's like it's real. It's his own hair. I mean, I've seen him take the ice bucket challenge straight over there.
It's his way though of just being like, here's how I am, you know, and this isn't important because I'm talking about real things that we need to do, as opposed to what I look like. That's not as important, you know.
I don't mind his hair. I quite like it.
Well, it's his trademark.
Yeah, it's just part of the quiff. Yeah, exactly. Having an image like somebody who always wears the same hat. What about that guy? What's he called? is he called Sledge? What's the name of the guy that the guitarist always wears?
Oh
that
yeah,
hat?
the Guns N' Roses. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna trademark. But, when always I hang out with Jeff and somebody has like an SP child, I always like ask Jeff, what's your recommendation for how to parent an ESFP? Jeff?
Well, are you asking me?
Yes. What are the little tips?
I can't answer a vague question. I'm trying to figure something out.
Oh, okay.
I screwed up, so I gotta fix it.
Oh, okay. While you do that, I'll ask Hannah about So, even before you knew your son was ESFP, did you still like them, or do you like them now more because you've got one in your family? Has your view towards them changed?
I think I understand them a bit better now. Like I said in the Fridays hangout on this supervision, because ESFP, if I'm INFP, ESFP should be my supervisor.
Yeah.
Yes. And like I said in that video, I have always been a bit scared of SP types because as a teenager, I think teenage years are like the golden age for SP types. It can be the golden age for them because they bloom earlier than, especially in comparison to NFs or NT types.
Yeah.
So I felt that I just didn't fit into that teenage culture. And then also SP types can be really quick to catch the trends because they are like observing and sort of like they're reactive and they catch what is trendy even before it's trendy.
Yes.
So yeah, and they have okay, I'm stereotyping, but this is my experience.
Yeah.
They are usually quite aesthetically aware, so they can have a good sense of style, and they are good at presenting themselves usually and making an impact. So as a teenager, I felt, like I said in that hangout, I felt really clumsy next to SPs and somehow lacking something. So when I had my SP boyfriend when I was 17, it was I think that was my first real perspective into SP kind of worldview or attitude or whatever, and that helped a bit. So and I have felt in a way intrigued by SPs because I feel they are so different from me. So they sort of interest me and scare me both at the same time. And I have often felt that they don't like me. So it's also that I project something, but they sort of get easily annoyed by me because I'm so cautious and just too emotionally attached to things and too theoretical.
I was did a couple of videos with Karina Murphy last night, and strengths and weaknesses, and she is a kind and loving person, but she did say that she likes to switch relationships when she gets bored and wants to be adventuresome. And she also talked about being in folding construction. So it's like you can have a very loving person, but you've got that SP temperament first. And she said sometimes it's like a battle within her where it's like the biggest strength is the biggest weakness. Like being bold, but can also lead someone to get into trouble by being rash. So that balance between assertiveness and you need the golden mean.
Yeah, I think romantically, specifically, I find them really scary because I get easily attached like emotionally attached to people. So like the first, like the worst thing that could be done to me, well, like to most people like me, is to be abandoned, or that I get attached and then someone would just get bored of me. So that's a really horrible idea.
I was gonna say, teenagers all struggle with feeling like they don't fit in some way, no matter what type they are. So even if there were SPs, you thought, oh well, they're like, living it up in this teenage world or whatever he said, but they had their insecurities too. I can tell you from experience. I definitely never felt like I was like I knew what I was doing when I was a teenager. I mean, I still don't, but I definitely didn't then. I was just trying to survive. That's what it felt like to me.
But did you feel like clumsy, or did you feel like you struggled understanding the code of, or the trends, or catching trends and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I never understood anything. I still don't, but even less so then. Like, I didn't know what was going on, stuff just flew past me. And I just, like I said, I just tried to survive. Just tried to, like, live day to day.
But there were times, opportunities where you were able to, like, be the center of attention and be a virtuoso. Like, was there like a high school radio something that you got involved with?
Oh well, I was in a broadcast journalism class, and the most fun thing we did was we recorded the football games, and I got to do the announcing. Like, I started out as like commentary, and then when the guy who was the play-by-play quit, then I took his position. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Not a lot of people saw it, unfortunately, but because it wasn't like on like TV where a lot of people could see it. We only had 1 or 2 games that were actually on like the cable channels, and even then it was not one that most people watch. But yeah, I enjoyed doing that, and I was in theater, and so that was probably my opportunity to have the biggest audience. So yeah, when I was in that element, then I really enjoyed myself. It was just all the rest of the time. I remember there was somebody that asked me on one of the Facebook groups, I think, about like, they said that there's this feeling with ESFPs, like, being the performers and all, like we're always on, quote unquote, like, and they said, do you ever, I don't know, I can't remember the question exactly, but it was something like, does it make you feel pressure, like you feel pressured to perform or something? And I actually said it's kind of the opposite. It's like when I have the opportunity to perform, that's when I feel like I'm most natural, and it's when I have to sort of be off stage, out of the spotlight, trying to figure out life and the world and other stuff, and being a parent and all those kind of things. That's when then it feels more pressure. That's the hard stuff. So some people talk about like stage fright and things like that. To me, I'm not going to say I've never had that, but I use that. That's like, I kind of feed off that as fuel to, perform. Like, I remember there's people that have said, even just me doing like YouTube videos, they've said things like that it was brave to do that, or it took courage or something like that to put up videos. And I don't feel that way at all. Like, I don't. Now, I do feel self-conscious about it sometimes because I don't like the way I look, but it's not about stage fright or anything like that. I don't have any kind of complex when it comes to, talking to an audience, especially something like videos where you can't even see the audience. So if anything, it's actually like I almost prefer to have a visible audience, because then I feel like there's sort of a feedback give and take with a group. In this, it's a little bit weirder, especially when I'm like recording a video by myself, because it's like I'm just talking to the camera, and I don't have that like feedback to kind of gauge how the audience is perceiving what I'm saying. So that's the tough part, is just sort of like, you know, doing my thing without getting any kind of instant reaction. But performance-wise, you know, yeah, I've gotten butterflies, you know, that feeling like when I was on stage or did things, because, you know, you kind of, but it's more like I sort of feed off that and like adrenaline, use it for the performance, you know. So, but it never like paralyzed me or anything like that, like some people have experienced.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I don't know if you have heard about me and Ben talking about this genetic, like DNA stuff. But this might, well, I don't know, and maybe you don't know your DNA, Jeff, but there is this one gene, or this one SNP called, it is that you're either warrior or, well, I can't say those, but, you know, warrior or warrior, yeah.
Warrior or warrior.
And it's about this dopamine sensitivity.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you're dopamine sensitive like I am, it means that that my dopamine levels, well, according to this one gene, that my dopamine levels are usually quite like how do you call it?
Low.
Really good. Like they're good. But if I'm living a normal life, like
yeah.
they're not too much. There's not, yeah. So there's not too much stress, and so they are like really well. I don't need anything to increase my dopamine level.
Right.
Let's put it this way. But then if I'm for instance, if I have to perform, or if there's something a bit more stressful, and which will increase my dopamine levels, because it will increase anyone's dopamine levels, then it will go bad, because I get too much of that, and then I will underperform, and because I get too nervous. Whereas those other types, these warrior types, they have usually have this lower dopamine level. So when they perform or do something more extreme, something that increases the dopamine level, they feel the best. Their dopamine level is like the perfect level of them.
Right. So what would stress you out is ideal for them.
Yes. So in this case, because I hate performing in front of the audience, I feel very nervous, and I usually underperform in exams, and you know, anything that puts me in a situation where I should do my best, I usually underperform. Whereas if I can do the same kind of thing in my own timetable, like where in a situation where I don't feel that stressed, I don't feel that immediate stress, then I perform better. So that's why I think most SB types are probably these low.
Yeah, my favorite thing is improvisation, and last weekend I got a chance to be a part of the show, and it's a show that I've seen double-digit times before, but it's one that's audience participation, and I've seen the show plenty of times, but I was never picked to be a part of it.
Oh, wow.
And this time I was.
Oh, wow.
So that was great, you know, because it's like, you know, in the show they pick 3 people from the audience, and then they incorporate them into the story, and you have to kind of act out what he's saying, you know.
That's a nightmare.
You know, it's not quite as. What's that?
A nightmare to me.
No. Well, it's not quite as good as if I got to make up my own dialogue or something, because I didn't get to do that. But I still got to act out, like, you know, I could do my own, like, facial expressions or things based on what he was saying that my character was supposed to do and stuff like that. So that was fun. So it was, you know, I hadn't been back to that particular. It's like a, you know, Renaissance festival type thing, and I hadn't been back there in, I don't know, 6 or 7 years probably, since my son was pretty little. Well, not super little, but I mean, he wasn't a teenager yet. Yeah, that was the first time I got picked to be part of the show, so that was a lot of fun.
Oh, God. One reason why I don't like to go to stand-up comic occasions is that I'm scared that they will pick me up or somehow. I'm really scared of that.
You'd like to say something like, "What's this supermodel doing in the audience?" Something like that.
That's funny you say that, because I went to a stand-up show a year and a half ago, something like that, and it was Kevin Nealon, And one of the things he does is he does a character called Mr. Subliminal, where he kind of says something and then he says something under his breath, like he's, you know, trying to give a subliminal message in your head or whatever. But he does it with the audience, where he'll pick out a few people and you know, he'll like see a couple and say something like, oh, you know, is that your boyfriend? Yeah, he looks like a handsome guy, meth dealer, you know. And so he does that kind of stuff with the audience. And so we actually were sitting like right up front, and so I actually was hoping that, you know, he would say something about us and like work me into the show, but he didn't. It was always other people.
Wow. Yeah.
So when I went to see my favorite comedian, Norm Macdonald, we didn't get there as early, so we were much further back. So it wasn't going to be. But he doesn't do quite as much audience interaction as Kevin Nealon does anyway. So. But yeah, that kind of thing I enjoy a lot. And if I was a comedian myself, like I would have to do something like that, because like if I just told jokes where it didn't matter if anybody was there in terms of what I said, it would be exactly the same every time. That would get so boring for me. Like I would always try to work in, like I would look at who was in the audience and try to somehow work that into my act. It would have to be part of it for me to enjoy it and be able to do it well.
Right. What Jeff said there about an audience is Karina said in the videos we did last night that when she does artwork, she does it for other people. That she wants other people to see like her artistry. Like if she does a job really well in terms of like construction, like she wants to see that she's done a good job, and it's for other people. So it sort of like shows the. If we're going to go into functions like the creative FE in the ESFP, so Hannah, could you say a little bit more why you find ESFPs scary sometimes? Is it...
I think it's mostly that I'm scared that they find me irritating or boring, or maybe boring is a bit it's not necessarily the right word, but like too sensitive, or they just get frustrated of my sensitivity in a way that I need time to. I'm not. I can be. The thing is, I can be impulsive in my decisions. I have made all my major life decisions very impulsively. But it's more, it happens more in my head, like they are not the concrete, very concrete, on-the-go activities. So if I'm in some kind of situation, for example, if I'm traveling with an ESFP kind of person, I think they would really throw me out at some point, because I would be so cautious about it. And so I would be really worried and stressed out about doing things spontaneously, and especially breaking rules. I hate to break rules, and I think most ESFPs and ESTPs have no problem with breaking rules. In fact, they enjoy breaking the rules.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's some. Those are reasons why, like, if I have had some quarrels or arguments with, or problems with ESFPs or ESTPs, they have to do with this.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's a parenting tip. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's like there's a parenting tip is that Jeff will make up rules for his SP son to break, because then he feels he's got away with something. Yeah, so what were you saying?
Yeah, it's important to give SP kids something they can feel like they get away with. Because then if they do that, then it's less likely they'll get into more dangerous stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and usually I know that my son can get just if I force that he has to do something, that's really bad. He usually just objects. But if I give him options that you can choose from these two, then he's more cooperative.
The other tip I guess I would say, because this reminds me, now my mother is an INFJ, and one thing that she does that it is slightly irritating is she would give me options. Let's say, like now as an adult, if I'm visiting her and we're going to go out to eat, she'll list options of where we could eat, and sometimes I'll say yes to the first one she gives. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, we'll go. But then she has to tell me all the other ones.
Ah,
And,
yeah, if you, that's.
And that's kind of irritating to me because I'm just like, I already said I'd do the first one. Let's just do that, But here's the difference, and I remember I talked about this when I did a video with Pneumoceptor, who's INFJ, a long time ago. Because I said the difference is like, I can pick that thing right away without knowing all the options, and that doesn't bother me. But then when I start, if I'm the one driving, we go out, and then I'm on the way to option 1, but I see something else that looks better on the way, then I want to say, oh, let's go here instead. And that like blows her mind. Like it's like, I wanted to give you all these other options. You could have told me ahead of time you wanted to do this, and you were just like, no, option 1, we're just going to do that, and then you want to go to this other thing on the way. I'm like, it's completely like we're complete opposites in the way we look at things that way, because to her it's like, you make up your mind and you decide on something, and then you go to do that thing, and you have to know in advance what you're going to do. Like when I was there, my birthday weekend last time, we had decided on a place to go, and we went there and it was closed. It was 4th of July, so it was a holiday. Not every restaurant is open. That one was closed. My reaction to that, even though I wanted to go there, I still actually got mildly excited by that, because then it's like, oh, okay, I can get back in the car and drive, and we can figure out something else. The act of sort of driving spontaneously and finding something, that's a fun thing to me. Whereas to her, it was like she started to panic, because she's like, we couldn't do the thing we wanted to do, and she wanted me to she wanted to give me options again and have me decide on something right there so we could go towards that. She always has her phrases. She says, I don't want to just drive around.
Oh, yeah.
And my attitude is exactly the opposite. I do want to just drive around. So, yeah, there's a clash that happens there. But in general, I think I feel like I'm really adaptable to who I'm with for the most part. And obviously, my mother, I know her really well, so I know what things ahead of time are going to rub her the wrong way, and I can try to accommodate her as much as I can. So, if I was hanging out with you and didn't know much about you, which I don't, it would take me longer to learn, what things were like that for you. But as far as me getting irritated with you, it takes a lot for me. I think my experience, I don't have a lot of experience with INFPs, but I think is the times that I've been irritated with them are not the times that they're being like, they're just expressing their own viewpoint on something. That I actually like and appreciate. The only times I have had a problem with INFPs is when they're too much repeating like groupthink type of stuff, or like political propaganda or things like that, where they sort of jump on the bandwagon of something.
Oh, and, ranting, it's INFP run.
Yeah, when it seems to me like they're not really thinking for themselves. Now, most of them probably wouldn't say that's the case, but that's how it comes off to me. As it's like, there's this sort of mentality of like, here's how everyone is supposed to think or feel about this, and there's something wrong with you if you don't. I don't like that mentality. So when I see that from people of whatever type, it bothers me. And that's something I've noticed some INFPs will kind of do that. But if it's just a thing, I mean, the INFP that I know the best in my life is a friend of mine that I used to work with him, used to live here in town. Now he moved out of town. But we had lots of fun together, and most of the time we hung out, there was, we were both very easygoing about what we were going to do, and there wasn't a lot of conflict at all. So it seemed like we got along really well.
Oh yeah, in that sense, I admit that's why I really enjoy traveling with my mom, because she's ISFP, and I still believe that I'm INFP. So we are like a perfect traveling company, because we are both introverted, so we don't require that much of stimulation. So we're pretty easygoing, but we also don't need to have a lot of plans. We just enjoy, going there and then seeing what we want to do. So, and we usually have similar interests also. And if we don't, we can just decide, okay, you can go there and I go there, and let's meet at some point. But we are quite flexible, which is good. And usually, if I'm with what was I saying? If I'm with SPs, I think the common thing is that what makes it easy is that we are both quite adaptable to changes, and I can be quite. My husband is ISTJ, and he has more. Just I think maybe I told that, but just yesterday, it was Saturday here, and we didn't have any strict plans, and he's very calm and very like easygoing in a way, but he was really he said like, I'm so anxious, I'm so lost because we don't have a plan what's going to happen.
But what I imagined there was that he would say, I'm so anxious, I need a strict plan. Not just a plan, a strict plan.
Yeah, but he just because he's quite laid back in some ways, so he's not like I think he's Enneagram 9, so he's not that like rigid than some ISTJs can be, but he still really wants to have some kind of timetable or schedule on or plan on what is going to happen. I mean, he gets very anxious, but I don't need that. I don't really need any of that.
That's the same as my mother, ISTJ Enneagram 9. Because we're almost into overtime. What do you think of ISTPs?
ISTPs. It's funny. I'm not sure how many ISTPs I know in real life, but online, I mean, in virtual communities, I tend to like ISTPs. Also, like INTPs. I for some reason
Thumbs up.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's a TI. There's something I admire good use of TI, right? And usually INTPs and ISTPs are less arrogant than their extrovert counterparts.
Yes.
So it's easier for me to, in a way, it's easier for me to communicate with them. And usually there is some kind of mutual appreciation going on. I don't know why, but I've noticed that. But it can also be, I was just writing to someone, that it can also be that ISTPs and INTPs are usually Enneagram 5s or 9s, more likely than, whereas ESTPs and ENTPs can be Enneagram 7 or 8, and 7 and 8 are the Enneagram types that usually have most problems with me.
Yeah. Because
I think what I respect about ISTPs is that they may be like the most straightforward type in terms of they're going. If you say, do you want to do X, whatever it is, they'll tell you straight up whether they want to do that or not.
Yeah, it's true.
And so you don't
they
have
are
to
very,
wonder.
yeah.
You don't usually have to wonder, like, are they just saying they want to do this because they're trying to make me feel good or something, but they don't really. They'll just say straight out whether something is good or not, and they don't really care whether it hurts somebody's feelings or not.
Oh, yeah.
Which I actually like overall, because I don't think they go out of their way to hurt people's feelings usually. It's just a matter of they're just very blunt and straightforward about things. Like, this is something I like, this is something I don't like. And they might be the most stubborn of all the types in terms of not wanting to do things that aren't their idea.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I've noticed with ISTPs is like you have to, if you want to get them to do something, sometimes you have to sort of like somehow make it so that it seems like they came up with the idea. And then they're much more likely to go along with it.
Oh yeah, you've come up with some anecdotes in the past where you've sort of like gone through some scenarios to like sort of plant the seed.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I did a video with my younger brother a couple years ago, who's an ISTP, and he even says in the video that basically there are times where he did something, like there was something he really actually did want to do, but he didn't do it because of the expectations people had on him on how he was going to do it. And that I think is a common SP thing in general, but ISTPs maybe are even the most that way, where they hate to meet somebody's expectations of them. They want to do something else and be, different and be seen as being different. So if they feel like that they come off as conforming and all, then they really hate that. So.
Oh yeah, I think ISTPs are probably one of the most autonomous types of all. So they value their privacy and their
the lone wolf.
Oh yeah. Actually, it's interesting because ISTP is the only other type that I have really considered for my husband. I have been a bit drawn between ISTP or ISTJ because he's a musician, he's a drummer, and I've noticed that many drummers are actually ISTPs.
Yes, Dario has written about that as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. In his books, I think he mentioned several ISTPs who were drummers, and that's one thing. And I know that. Yeah, so that's the other type that I have considered for him. So it's interesting that when Viktor has thought that I'm ENFJ, so I'm sort of fluctuating this, that if I'm ENFJ, then my husband is ISTP, but if I'm INFP, then my husband is ISTJ.
Yeah, that's something we'll try and work out in the future with Viktor, where he thinks that the MBTI ISTJ is the socionics, like beta, like, you know, TISE, and I'm not of the same opinion there. But we will try to iron that out in future SI Hangouts. But in general, because I know you're up against the clock a bit here, is what is it about ESTPs that you don't like? Or your general thoughts about them? I don't like arrogance. The arrogance is a huge trigger to me. And even though they don't necessarily mean to be arrogant, they just the impression you get is often arrogant because they are so, I don't know, maybe it's just their style of expressing themselves, but it can trigger me, and then I sort of my defenses go up if I see someone being arrogant. Do you also think they have an FI problem? Like,
yeah, they might have. And
what does that look like in reality, you think?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't have that much experience of ESTP, but I could imagine in some occasions that when they approach people, they can sometimes see people as means to their ends. So they can lack the empathetic perspective. So it's not their first choice to see things from the other person's perspective, emotional, or like they are not very compassionate in that sense.
What my son tells me is that he basically looks at life as a battle and the problems to solve. Like when a person presents something, he's trying to help them like in the most practical way possible, like. And so what he doesn't realize, it's like what he comes off as being aggressive or hostile to other people. When for him it's like he's just trying to get to the crux of the problem, you know, trying to solve the problem as soon as possible. So if somebody, you know, he's not about like, you know, well, what do I have to couch this in? What layers do I have to put on this in order for somebody to not feel bad about it? It's more like just get to the point and do it. And when the arrogance to me, it comes off as like he actually has a great deal of insecurity, but when he feels like he sees something clearly, he wants to tell somebody that, and he wants to get that across to someone. Here's the way I see it, but he doesn't always put it in those terms. He just puts it as a matter of fact. This just is, you know. This is what the facts are. This is the reality of it. But if somebody else doesn't see it that way, he doesn't really necessarily have any tolerance for that. It's just... Oh,
yeah, they can be easily frustrated.
So, again, I think, and this is something, again, you know, DJ R&D said in videos he did, so again, they seem very similar because he'll get really frustrated when he feels, and then people are saying, you know, he's a jerk or he's, you know, just trying to hurt people's feelings or anything like that, and he's like, he's saying my feelings are hurt when people accuse me of things I'm not trying to do, you know, and I'm just trying to help people, and then I get thrown back in my face, you know, why are you being mean to me or whatever, you know, so, yeah, that's interesting perspective, huh?
So
they don't see themselves as arrogant most of the time.
So what we can do is, because it's at 11:08 where Hanna is, we can finish up by saying you mentioned that some of the nurses on your nursing course were ISFP, and what is the sort of like difference between yourself and them?
Well, I told about one class that we had that made them react that I haven't seen in any other class that we've been in. So there was this one. Well, it was a very difficult topic, and the lecturer said something that was quite. I think I would say that most of the audience was quite appalled. Well, she was saying that it's basically women's fault if they get raped, and that was like, you know, class full of young women. So the reactions were quite interesting.
I mean, like gasp. Were there gasps in the? I would have gasped. Were there gasps?
Oh yeah,
in
well
the,
there were. Yeah, there were people like, what? Yeah, it was really.
I think you said that she was someone from an Islamic culture. Is that
correct?
Yeah.
She was a Finnish woman who had returned to Islam, as they say. And I kind of understood where she came from when the lecturer explained her own background a bit. Of course, I completely disagreed with her what she said, and it was interesting that's actually quite typical to me. That when other people react even more strongly than I do, then I sort of calm down and I start to, trying to negotiate sort of in between. Yeah, that happens often.
Do you feel that they've almost vented what you wanted to vent? And so then you don't need to vent it yourself because somebody else has done it?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, and someone says, because they expressed some women there were really angry, and they were saying they're expressing their thoughts quite in a straightforward way, so to say.
Because in that situation, it might be that the INFP wants to get their message out, to make sure they get their point out, but they actually might find it unpleasant, the actual act of getting their point across, because it requires a little bit of conflict, but they want the point to be made. So if somebody else makes that point for them, they might think, oh, yes, thank God they said that, I don't have to say it.
Yeah, yes, it was easier for me, and because after that I could sort of, I could negotiate. I could try to make the discussion a bit more, less aggressive, because it started to become quite aggressive, and so both parties are starting to be quite defensive. So
earlier on, you said something about when you said about them being scary. Yet you also said you're a counterphobic 6. So how do those two things go together?
Well, counterphobic 6, like me, if I'm scared, I don't show it. So if I'm scared, I can lash out and sort of attack back. So I don't think many people would say that they have seen me scared, like really scared. It's more that I get this inner feeling, getting scared, and then my reaction to fear is to become a bit contrarian. So.
Right. Well, I'll be a good boy. I'll let you get off now because you did say that the limit was.
I have to wake up in the morning. Unfortunately.
11.
Yeah, it's 11.
So thanks again for being adaptable and
my pleasure.
Thanks to Jeff as well.
Yeah,
it was cool to chat.
It was great to talk to you.
Oh yeah, it was really nice. Thanks.
Next time we can cover Guardians. See how you get on with them.
Yes.
And Jeff can complain about them. and admire them as well for their ability to do all the boring stuff.
I'm very fair to Guardians, I think.
Are you?
Pardon?
Okay. Interesting.
Right, so we'll stop now, folks.
Okay.